In this video, you will see engraving, pocketing, and VCarving text. This process is used for text and shapes, but I am also teaching you how to use the text tool as well in this example. It's really important to know some of the choices that you have because your projects can get more and more complicated as you know more about the program VCarve and how to use and operate the shopbot. In this example, you'll see text example 1, 2, and 3, which correlate to engraving, pocketing, and VCarving. So please enjoy the video, and if you like this one, please click on others to see what else you can do in VCarve. So we are looking for the text, which we'll find under Create Vectors. So our text option can be used for any text that you want to write yourself. If you wanted to pull text from like a logo or from somewhere else, that's in another video. But if you just wanted to simply write out your own text, please use the Create Text tool. And what you'll see here is actually 3 different examples of text. And we have a whole slew of options for text, just like you would find in Google Docs or Microsoft Word. But what's important is that you hit apply. So every time you change one of these, you have to hit apply in order for it to change. So for instance, I changed it out of Times New Roman and I changed the height to 3. But for this example, you can also bold and italicize it and you can see it there. So it's really cool, but you just got to make sure every time you change something, you hit apply. So text height says 4 inches. If you were to take a tape measure out and measure the height, it would be 4 inches. There's nothing hidden about that. So knowing that, you know I'm working on a pretty large work surface. This work surface you see here is 48 by 48. You can see I use the 2-inch rule to create a 46 by 48, and I am just using Control V to copy and Control V to paste. So maybe you have multiple things to put text on, and you can always just go back and edit. So it's not a bad way if you want to keep the same text to copy, paste it, change what the text says on the next row. And that way, some of those items are kept the same, like the font, the size, the style, anything like that. And here I'm just moving the arrow keys to move that third one closer. And again, you highlight it, make sure it's pink/purple. You can go in and change the font. So in this case here, I now see example 1, 2, and 3. Because we have 3 different options, okay? Our options are engraving, milling, /pocketing, or VCarve. So this first one here, I am going to do a 2D profile toolpath. It's got a cut depth of 1/8 of an inch, and I'm engraving on the line. So that machine vector is where the purple is, and the tool will try and cut on the line. It's important that we label this as the type of tool and what line of text we're doing. So I have VBit, example 1. That way, when I actually go and run the machine, I know what steps the machine is working on, because it may not always be clear to other people if you're sharing the machine with them. So here's a render of what it will look like. You can see it's cutting on the line. We'll get a slightly angled view here in a second of what it will look like. Right there. And you can see it imprints about 1/8 of an inch, which is what we're doing. So this 3D view menu only shows up after you simulate a tool path. So we're going to go back to the 2D view, and if you deselect and you close out of that simulation menu and we highlight the tool path we made, we can see those arrows. Those arrows represent the direction it's going to go. So now we're looking for the pocket tool. This time we're going to pocket example number 2, and it's going to cut everything inside the vector. But our tool is a end mill bit. So V-bits are good for engraving lines, but end mills are good for creating pockets and cutting things out. So right here it says a 1/2 inch straight end mill bit, which is pretty big. So when you're doing pockets, it's better to use either like an 1/8 of an inch or a 1/4 of an inch. And typically your cut direction is climb and not conventional. So I can change the name here. I could go to example 2. Actually, delete it because I'm trying to keep them all the same and make sure I list my tool and then my piece of text. So I said end mill 1/4 inch, example 2, and I'll preview it and I'll see it right there. So there it is. Now for our third one, all the way at the end, and you can see how the mill pattern is different from the prior one. You can see all those arrows are going back and forth to create that pocket versus just the V-bit, which will go on the line. So I used the top left 2 tools for example 1 and then example 2. And this third tool is VCarve. So this one's really cool. It's going to find the center of each of these and essentially create a diagonal pattern down into the board to create the example 3. So as it cuts, it's trying to find the bottom out of it. So it's quite unique from the 2. So there's really not much you need to change. A lot of people use 60-degree V-bits. You might have like a 45-degree V-bit, and you would go and select that tool towards the top of this menu. Luckily for me, VCarve V-bit example 3 is a pretty close naming convention to the prior 2 to notify me that I need to swap out tools if I were to do this in the order of example 1, 2, and 3. So you can deselect these and kind of check them out one by one. Maybe you only wanted one of them. Maybe you give your client time to think about it. Right here, I go and make the thickness deeper, the thickness of this board deeper, because I got a warning earlier that said the VCarve bit would cut through the board. So I don't actually have a board for this example. This is just a simulation of it. But it's important to know that V-bits, they really do matter on how big the text is and how deep they go. Because the larger the text, the larger the size, the thicker your material needs to be. Because if I did have that 1/2 inch thick piece and I tried to use VCarve on that size of text, it may not work. So when you want to save them, you need to make sure that that checkbox right over here, that tool paths is checked off. All 3 are checked off as well. And the machine would then go and be ready to save all 3 of these in order. So then you'd want to make sure the top one is checked. You can also see the 3 descriptions there. It says shopbot inches.sbp. What is next? So you might be using this tool for text or for shapes. You might have already clicked on the logo video and seen how to bring in your logos, and this same process is how you would engrave or pocket any sort of logos you like or other shapes you like. And this step should be somewhere in the middle of your overall process. Other steps you might be looking at is maybe you are looking to add logos or mirror things, or maybe this was your final step before you start looking at the outside cut to actually cut out your project on the shopbot. So there are other steps that you can click on. I have other videos for you to look at, but I hope you found this helpful. And if you have any comments or questions, please put them in YouTube, and I'll be sure to reply to them. Thanks, and have a good one.